Well, hello there, my fellow rushers. How are you doing today? King Rex here, and for today we have an interesting video. This one is going to be discussion, and we're going to be discussing with one of my fellow subscribers who goes by the name of Markimar. Say hello, Mark.
Hi.
And yeah, we'll be talking about which one is the best tower in each Kingdom Rush game, and we're gonna be discussing them. So let's begin. Who should we Who should start, man? Do you want to hear my opinion first, or do you want to begin?
Let's begin with your opinion first.
Alright then, well, starting off with the first game. To be honest, it's a pretty obvious choice, but it has to be the Tesla. Like, the damage out of this thing can be astronomical. 66 to 121 damage, and it ignores 50% armor. That's very good. Even though the range is kinda iffy, like 330 scope, that's not quite as much as I would like it to be, but it it's not that problematic when if you put it in a good spot. And the thing is that unlike Big Bertha, you don't really need much stalling power with the Tesla. All you really need is just to put it in a good spot and it will do it just fine. You can clean up hordes of enemies with ease, especially when you upgrade the overcharge ability. And even though it doesn't seem to do all that much damage, like 30 to 40 damage, that's more than enough to deal with enemies like wolves, skeletons, goblins. It can just blow them out of the water. And it makes it really easy. The only issue that I have with the Tesla, outside its range, is the fact that it's a bit iffy when it comes down to targeting. Since it can only target 3 enemies, that makes it a little bit hard to use. But you can also upgrade the what was it called, supercharged bolt, and you can hit
Yeah.
yeah, and you can hit with multiple enemies with them. You can hit all the way up to 5. However, there's a little bit of a bug with the Tesla, which most people don't talk about. But basically, the how do I say it? Basically, if you it's based around the damage that it's gonna do. It's kind of based around the range. If you hit an enemy outside your range, like way off, the Tesla is gonna do barely any damage, which is kind of weird. Even with all the upgrades, this issue doesn't go away. I've noticed it recently, but I never really thought that was the case. But then I talked to a few people, and it turned out that it works like this for some reason, which is kind of odd. But other than that, I feel like the Tesla should be the best. I was really thinking about the sorcerers, but then again, sorcerers are not really great against crowd control. Like, they don't have good crowd control. Even though they have the elemental, it's kind of expensive and it can easily die if you have like Flareons, magma elementals, etc. Like enemies that have long range attacks or do just heavy damage, the elemental is not going to be able to keep up with them. So yeah, as far as Frontiers goes, it definitely has to be the bottleneck. Holy crap, this artillery is just insane. Like, it's like a much better version of the Tesla. It's a movable artillery, so it's not limited. You can move it to wherever you want. It also deals a pretty good amount of damage, 28 to 61. Even though it seems kind of low, it attacks every 1 second, which is more than enough. It's really good because of the upgrade system in Frontiers. The last upgrade gives it a certain amount of chance to stun on every attack. And because it attacks so fast, you can get a lot of stunning power with this thing. But the most impressive thing for sure is the Wasp missiles. Like 4 missiles that each one does between 20 and 80 damage. Now the damage gap may seem a little bit wide, but the thing is that the cooldown is only 8 seconds, so you can use it very often. The thing is that the trigger area for it's a bit like, it's not unlimited, but once it shoots the missiles, they will never miss. They can hit practically anywhere on the map. As far as the waste disposal goes, I find it to be pretty good because the slowdown is pretty drastic. We're talking about 70% slowdown. And it doesn't have that much of a different cooldown. It happens every 10 seconds. However, I don't find it to be too useful. Like, even though the slowdown is great, I don't find myself buying it all that often. Like, it's kind of expensive. We're talking about the total amount of 650 gold. And that's a little bit too much for me for just some utility. I usually just get the Wasp missiles and then just go for another battle mecha or try to combine them with something else. The Dwarf is also really good, but the issue with the dwarf is that it's based around positioning. You need to put them in a really precise spot in order to get the maximum amount of damage out of this thing. And in some maps, you can't really do that, unlike the Battle Mecca. You can put it practically anywhere and it's gonna do just fine. So, moving on to Origins. For Origins, this was a little bit of a tough choice, but I would say Forest Keepers. I feel like they have pretty much everything you want. They have a good amount of HP, 300 HP, which is pretty high, 24 to 36 physical damage, and they attack every 1.3 seconds, which is not that bad. However, their ranged attack is a bit iffy. They attack every 3.1 seconds, which is kinda meh, to be honest. But the thing is that there's one upgrade that kinda makes up for it. And of course the upgrade is the Ancient Oak Spears, which makes their ranged attack do true damage, and they can go all the way up to 160 true damage. And that's quite a decent amount. If you have both of them targeting one target at the same time, you're gonna get a lot of damage out of them. Sure, it's a bit pricey, you know, 250 gold per upgrade, but it's definitely worth it. And in comparison to like every other tower in Origins, they're not the most expensive, but they are definitely one of the more pricey towers to get, but they're so worthy. I mean, the artillery in Origins is kind of one of the worst. Like, the Arc Druid Henge, even though he shoots fast and he can gain up to 3 rocks, similar to the Archmage in Frontiers, I don't find it to be that useful. The bears are good, but they're a little bit too expensive. And as far as the Sylvan Curse goes, it's good, but it depends on what, because the targeting is a bit iffy, and if you use it on an enemy that has like barely any HP left, then you can't really get much usage out of it. The Wordwood is nice, but I don't know, I just don't use this tower all that much. I usually don't go for artillery and Origins all that much. I just go for mostly barracks and archers. Even though the mages are good, I don't use them too often. Anyway, as far as the other abilities go, they're pretty much the reason why they're so good. The first one is, of course, the Circle of Life, which is a really great regeneration. It happens every 10 seconds, so the cooldown is very, very short. However, the thing is that on iOS, sadly, for the people who are playing on iOS, there's a bug. And they heal only measly 40 HP for 4 seconds. On all 3 tiers, mind you, so even if you max it out, they're gonna barely heal, which is very, very disappointing, and yeah, it's just sad, but in reality, they're awesome. Like, they can heal 240 HP. That's over half of their health. And again, because it happens so frequently, they could have more survivability than the Blade Singers, because even though the Blade Singers can become invulnerable, it's chance-based. And only 30%, the chance is not really in your favor. Well, here you have a pretty constant regeneration. Like every 10 seconds, that's a very short cooldown for such an awesome ability. And the thing is that it also affects small areas. Now, the AoE is very small, but you can potentially heal not only the Forest Keepers, you can heal nearby barracks units, nearby reinforcements, so you have a new hero. Well, besides the flying heroes, because they cannot get affected, which is a little bit sad, but whatever. And then we also have the, what was it called? Eerie Gardener, I think that's how you pronounce this ability. And it's a kind of nice group area attack. It's not that great, but it's something. The cooldown is a bit longer, every 16 seconds, but it's not too bad. The damage that it does is alright. It can do 144, I believe, physical damage. And the slowdown is kind of decent, you know, 50%, it's not bad. And the duration gets increased from 4 seconds on the first upgrade to 6 seconds, which is good, like 50% extra. However, on iOS is a little bit less. Like, the first upgrade is supposed to give you 72 damage, while on iOS it's gonna be only 69. And on the second tier, instead of 144, you're gonna get 140. But you know, this is just a small difference. It's not like something ridiculous like their Circle of Life ability, but overall, I feel like the Forest Keepers should be the best tower. I definitely use them more than any other tower in the game, you know, in Origins. As far as Vengeance is considered, that was probably the toughest one to raid because there's so many towers and there's such a plethora of different combinations and abilities. But if I have to, yeah,
I can agree with that. Like, it's very like having multiple choice is good, but sometimes it can be very hard since there's like I believe 16 or 18 towers in a vengeance.
yeah, there's quite a lot of towers in there. But I'm thinking about it as using only this tower alone. Like, how good is it as a standalone tower? And that's kind of hard because you have Bone Flingers, which are amazing because they do a lot of damage and a pretty fast attack rate, and they provide you with a good amount of stalling power, but multiple issues. Their range is very short, and it's really hard to make them useful against heavy armored enemies like Bone Carriers, Frost Giants, what were they called? The Mecca boys from the first area, the Dwarven Mecca, I believe it was called. And then I was thinking about the Blazing Gem, but the Blazing Gem really isn't good against crowds. Like, even though it has this ability where if it kills a target, it explodes and then deals some area damage, the AoE is very small and it's not really efficient. You need to combine it usually with artillery in order to make it really good. Even though it shreds bosses, it will not be able to survive a horde of low tier enemies, which is kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. But in the end, I came up with this decision. I feel like the Swamp Thing is by far the best standalone tower. First of all, you can use it as an archer, and the range on this thing is through the roof. Like, the range is by far the biggest in any game. We're talking about 600 scope up in here, and that's a lot. You can put it in spots where you can't put most towers because their range is not enough to make it useful. While with this tower, you can put it anywhere on the map and it's still gonna do a good amount of damage. And that's the good thing. The damage is pretty consistent. If you have all the upgrades, it can do between 99 and 110 damage as tier 4, which is a pretty good amount. Even though the attack rate is slow every 2.1 seconds, I find it to be pretty decent. It's really good for single targets when it's an archer, mainly because of one of its abilities, which is the Blinding Liquid, which is pretty cheap. It only costs a total of 306 gold to max it out, which is very good. And it has 60% chance to stun an enemy for 3 seconds. And technically you can have an enemy stunned for quite a long time with this. And if you have more than one Swamp Thing with the Blinding Liquid all the way up, you pretty much have a perma-stun going on, and this enemy is not gonna go anywhere. He's just gonna be stuck there forever. But then again, you also have crowds, which are usually coming in with the tough enemies, so what do? Well, you can just use him as a unit. That's the cool thing about him. You can use him as an archer or as a melee unit. And this thing is very hard to kill. We're talking about 3000 total health, which is by far the most health that any unit in the game has. In any game, actually. Even though it has no armor, it doesn't need it. Like, 3000 health is more than enough. And if you think that's not OP enough, then you also have the Carnivore ability, which is just a single tier upgrade, and it costs measly 68 gold. But what it gives him is, basically, when it kills an enemy, it regenerates 35% of its own maximum HP. And that's basically 1050 HP per kill. And the thing is that, even though as an archer it can only hit single targets, when you use it as a melee unit, it has group damage, similar to Mortimus's ultimate ability, which is the Rotten Bodyguard. And even though I believe the Rotten Bodyguard, I heard somewhere that it deals true damage, I'm not quite sure if that's correct or not, but if it is, then cool. But the thing is that the Swamp Thing doesn't really need true damage. Like, if you have multiple Swamp Things as a in melee mode with the Blinding Liquid and their Carnivore ability, like, almost nothing is gonna sneak through. Like, you have a total of 120% chance to stun. It's near perma-stun. It's ridiculous. They also have this insta-kill ability, which is cool, but the attack rate is kind of slow. Like, when they're in melee, I believe they attack a little bit slower. I think they attack once every 3 seconds, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe the attack rate is the same. I haven't made my calculations on it, but wait. No, now that I think about it, actually it's 2.5 seconds, not 3 seconds. But still, the attack rate is pretty slow and the chance is only 6%. I don't find the insta-kill ability to be too useful, but still, it's an insta-kill nonetheless. But I don't find it to be too reliable. I would much rather get a guaranteed skill on a set cooldown rather than having 6% chance on a cooldown. And no, the skill doesn't work on groups of enemies. It's not that broken, but still. I believe this tower is by far the best as far as standalone towers go. I don't think any other tower will be able to make it anywhere near close to the Swamp Thing. So yeah, this is pretty much my rating. So Markimar, what is your rating?
To agree with you on the first two games, but for Vengeance it is going to be extremely hard, and so I'm going to have to do a very thorough, a very fast examination. And I choose a completely different tower with in Origins. Explain why Tesla is good in my range. First, it is an artillery tower. This means that whenever the Tesla fires, it ignores 50% of armor. This means that someone with medium armor or 50% or 40% could only have 20% or 25% resistance. That is very good. And here's the cool thing about it. It can arc between 3 enemies. This is very good for medium to high enemies. Now big clumps of enemies, that is sort of kind of its kryptonite. That it can be very hard for it to do it on its own. But there is an upgrade that is called Overcharge Cold, which makes a static field around the tower, and so it can deal up to 30 to 40 damage, which is extremely good for skeletons or orcs, which skeletons which you deal with in the final levels are extremely annoying because they spawn from the graveyard, which means that every demon you kill that comes from the 2 routes, but that comes from a route will spawn it as a skeleton, and so that can be extremely annoying. But with Overcharge, that can help your problems much more easily. Next, you can upgrade the arc of the bolt, and it's called Supercharged Bolt. This increases the maximum targets that the bolt arcs to. It can have a maximum of 5 targets, which is good since it deals more damage. Now, I'm gonna have to talk about the cons of this one. The cons is that it has a lower range than I believe the Dwarven Howitzer, the level 3 artillery. And it can only but Tesla's single target DPS is not high, which means that enemies with heavy regeneration, like the troll chieftain, or many of the trolls as a whole, can be very hard to deal with, because the trolls, even though it's the second genre of units you fight in Kingdom Rush, they can be very annoying with their health regeneration. And plus, Tesla's special abilities do not offer utility, making it special in some cases. It only increases damage output, which damage output is good, but what if you have a giant enemy with like a Yeti? It can deal damage, but it's not gonna kill it. You're gonna need support from paladins, rangers, musketeers, or mage towers, presumably the arcade tower. The arcade tower is a good tower since it's basically the blazing gem but weaker at a point. Next, I'm gonna have to agree with Rexy on this one. The battle mecha. It is very even though it's not a unit that fires from a point, it's a unit itself. Meaning that but it's invulnerable, meaning that it cannot be attacked. And it deals a lot of damage with its two mini cannons, which the battle mecha fires from its shoulders. But what makes the battle mecha very special is its wasp missiles. Its wasp missiles are very important because now the battle mecha is good without upgrades, but it is even better with wasp missiles because they deal 20 to 80 damage each, which never miss. And here's the best part about it. It has global range, which means that it can reach anywhere on the map. And it has a cooldown of 8 seconds, which is very good. The maximum you can have is 4, which if you multiply 80 times 4, that is 320 damage, which is a lot. Especially for weak enemies, like some bandits or some zombies or husks, for example. Next is waste disposal. Now, a lot of people like you would, or like Rexy, would bother not spending money on this. But I spend money on this because it slows down your enemies by 70%. That is good. Because other artillery, because the battle mech can fire with its mini mortar, can fire with its cannons, and so that can deal a lot of damage. And so it is an epic opportunity for tornado to come in from the archmage, which is very good for pushing enemies back. Now, it seems like I believe the only weakness the battle mecha has, I believe it cannot. It has a very small damage. It has a very small range, which is bad. But the wasp missiles mitigate that. But Rexy, does it attack enemies under the mecha?
Pretty sure it attacks enemies underneath it. By the way, before we continue, I want to mention something that I forgot about the battle mecha. Apparently, its missiles also have a chance to stun an enemy if you fully upgrade the artillery.
Yes, shock and awe. Now,
yeah,
shock and awe is it's a very good upgrade for like a dwarf, since the dwarf, whenever it does its earthquake, it slows down enemies for about a second or a split second, which is very good. And even better, if it stuns it, that means that it stops completely, you know?
Yeah.
So, next is some of you might or might not agree with me. So, I believe that the best tower is Wild Magnus. Now, it might be controversial, but I'm gonna explain to you why it is good. So first, it has an extremely fast attack rate, possibly the best projectile-based tower, since it isn't. The blazing gem has like the best fire rate, but that's a laser, not a projectile. And I'm gonna tell you a con right now, is that the quotes, like "smoking," can be very annoying sometimes.
Oh yeah, the quotes are not quite the best. But the attack speed is really good though, like, I believe this tower attacks the fastest out of any game. It attacks every 0.3 seconds, like, that's an insane amount of attack rate. Like, the fastest that I've seen is usually 0.6 seconds, but 0.3, that's just out of this world, man. And
Yeah.
it deals bonus damage, I believe, on each hit or something like that.
Which means that against like a Twilight Golem, which are very annoying, which everyone agrees on that since the midi boss and all. Because you know how the Twilight Golem, how it's special is that it has high armor. Now that's annoying. But blood shells are much more annoying. Everyone can agree on that. Next we have Eldritch Doom. Eldritch Doom is basically if you had a meter of an insta-kill, the person in charge of that meter would just turn it all the way up, and he would end up breaking it, making it exceed past its maximum level. Because whenever this insta-kills everyone, which everyone knows that, even though it may have a cooldown of 28 seconds, which means that almost you use it every 2 times per minute, which is slow. But whenever it kills someone, like a Bandersnatch, it deals magic damage, which is very good, but it is very bad towards people who have magic resistance, like the spiders or the Twilight ladies that whenever you kill them, they disable a tower. And this deals about, at max level, 260 damage, which is a lot. Especially against, people who have armor. Next is Ward of Disruption. Now this has a cooldown of 11 seconds, which is good. You can fire almost 5 times, maybe a little after 6 times. This silence enemies, which blocks their magical abilities, like the freaking Twilight
Heretic?
evoke.
Oh. I thought you were about to say heretics, because those things are just really annoying. But I can see how the evokers are gonna be bad.
The Twilight Scourgers, those are
Oh.
are very bad. No. Twilight Adventures, not so much, but it's so good. Now, the best thing about this is that it can target 6 enemies, which is very good for Twilight Scourgers, since if you kill a pack of 5 Twilight Scourgers at once, whenever they die, they are going to disable your towers. Because that's what annoys me about them, is the disabling ability. I hate it. It's so annoying. So it has... So every tower with an insta-kill is somehow affected by luck. Because one time, whenever you have 2 enemies by its side, either the weakest spider possible or a Bandersnatch. If you are unlucky, it will target the spider, which would make you freaking yell in anger because of how the AI is like, that.
Yeah, you can't really change the targeting. That's why I keep saying that insta-kills can be good, but also they can be bad. It depends. That's why I prefer insta-kills on melee heroes, because at least you can put them against a certain enemy, you can pick which one you can insta-kill. All you need to do is just keep a timer in your head. Like, how long is the insta-kill? Is it 25 seconds? Is it 30 seconds? And keep counting it. And whenever you see an opportunity, you just send them in there and insta-kill the enemy that's gonna be the most problematic. While with the wild Magus, it can help, but at the same time, as you said, it can also miss, and that's a pretty heavy loss.
It does get mitigated a little bit since it can't affect the bandage snatch if it targets the spider, since it has splash damage.
Wa-
And
Wasn't it area damage? I thought it was area damage.
oh, splash damage, area damage, basically the same thing, but you know, maybe splash damage can be a very. How about area damage for now? So, wide Magnus, good, but and Rexy, what'd you say with Chance? Chance could be both good and bad, mostly bad. If you have like, you know, the Pit Lord in Vengeance.
Yes.
It is very powerful for me since it has a high damage. You know, in one time, every time you spawn reinforcements, you have it almost all the time. But at one time, you barely get it. That's the problem with Chance, that sometimes it can benefit you, but most times it can, you know, it won't affect you, you know? Like Lilith. Lilith is. She depends mostly on Chance, which is good since if she dies multiple times, like by a Twilight Golem, maybe she can revive herself since she can resurrect herself. But the most problematic thing about Lilith is that her ultimate ability. Most times we want the Rain of Fire. Like that's very good because it targets multiple enemies. But with the angels, it can only affect like 3 or 4 enemies before disappearing, which means that Chance overall can be good in some cases, but most times it just screws you over.
Yeah, Lilith is just really bad. Like, as much as I want to like her, because when I was a kid, I didn't really care about RNG. I was like, whatever, I would just try again because I had all the time in the world. But now that I'm an adult and I have some work and I can't just stay in front of the computer playing Kingdom Rush for 16 hours a day, and I have to make videos, you know, every now and then, and I just need to focus. I want someone that's gonna do a consistent job. But with Lilith, you never know. I can't explain you how many times I died on a really hard level because her ultimate screwed me over. Especially if I was doing a heroic or iron challenge. Like, the angels are good if you have a single target, but on an area, it barely makes any difference. Unless the enemies have like below 200 health. In that case it could help, but that's usually not what happens. They just destroy you. Speaking of her resurrection chance, back in the day I believe it was only 20% chance, while now it is 30%, so it was buffed since. And also I discovered a weird thing. It was commented by one of my viewers, and apparently, you know that ability where she can gain damage boost if an enemy dies near her?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, if let's say you have something like, I don't know, an Avenger who dies near her and she absorbs him, and she gains this bonus damage for 12 seconds. If she performs the Reaper's Harness ability, apparently the damage from the Reaper's Harness gets affected by her base attack. So if she absorbs someone really strong, the Reaper's Harness can do an incredible amount of damage. Now I'm not sure how this thing works, I need to find the comment and check it out, but it can do some massive damage, which is something that I noticed, but I never knew how it worked. I thought there was a bug in the beginning, but apparently that's the way it was meant to work.
Yeah. I noticed that, you know. But
Yeah, you have to really look into it in order to see the differences.
you know what? Have you played on Bloons Tower Defense?
Oh yeah, I've played this game quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you know how whenever you press on a monkey, that you can make a target either the first, the last, the strongest, or the weakest?
I think
You know
weak,
that?
yeah, but I think weak was only in BTD4 though. Maybe it was in BTD5, but I'm not quite sure. I feel like it was only in BTD4.
Yeah, but imagine we had that for like the insta kill abilities on, like, you know, the golden longbow or a wild Magnus. That would help us so much.
Yeah, it would have been nice if that was a reality, but unfortunately that's not the way it is.
Yeah, but think Ironhide. for giving us this wonderful game. Like, thank you, Ironhide. Now I'm just supporting. Now I'm just worshipping Ironhide like it's a god.
Yeah, I've been doing that ever since I was 10, so I know how it feels.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's get to vengeance. Now, vengeance. I don't have all the towers for vengeance, since I'm a kid and so I had to wait. Either I had to wait to get some money, or I had to work at my mom's work to get $5. But I have bought the heroes for both Frontiers and Origins, and so I have a lot of playtime out of that. But Blazing Gem is good, but I can't really, relate with this since I don't have the tower itself. So I'm just gonna observe from a free player's view. And so I believe that the best free tower, in my opinion, in Vengeance is about either the Boneflingers or the Mausoleum. Because how about I just agree with the Mausoleum? Because the Mausoleum, it's good. Because since it has spirits which like the Archmage, but better at degrees. Maybe the Archmage can be better than the Mausoleum at some things, like crowd control with its Twister ability, but most times the Mausoleum is good. Because there's an upgrade where if you upgrade it, you get 2 gargoyles. These gargoyles are very good since they give you blocking ability. And so the blocking ability is very good if you want to hold like a strong enemy there. And so it has, even though it might have some relatively mediocre health, it has 60% armor, which is good because in Origins, in King Dina's, he has 400 health, which according to Rexy is not that low, but he has 60% resistance, which is very good. And then the Mausoleum has a second upgrade called Spectral Communion, which allows you to store extra, spirits with a maximum of 5, which is good for strong enemies, like a ice golem, if I'm correct. Now, Possession. Now, this is a thing where it can this is another ability that kind of relies on chance, or RNG, for all you RPG, players, which I used to play Epic Battle Fantasy 5 back when Flash wasn't dead. This allows you to take control of an enemy for 10 seconds, which is good. Like, if you take control of a very high damage dealing enemy, like a paladin or a war captain, that can be very good, but it can screw you over, make you possessed a recruit or a footman. Footman obviously is better, but RNG can screw you over sometimes, and the best thing about Spectre's Mausoleum is that it is the cheapest tower in the game. But even though it may deal the lowest magic damage, it's cheap. It has utility, and even though some people can be like, oh, this guy he doesn't buy towers and vengeance. Let's all publicly shame him. It doesn't matter. and the best thing about this is that it's a free tower. And so don't let anyone tell you what to do. Like that's not cool in any way. Because that's called bullying. And bullying is obviously bad, since every one of us has been bullied before, including me.
Yeah,
So
that's correct. But to be honest, the Mausoleum has a pretty interesting bugs with it, but I've also find it sometimes it's about to possess someone and the little ghost out of the Mausoleum comes out, but for some reason it just disappears. I don't know why. Is it a bug only on Steam or is it everywhere? Because I haven't seen it all that often.
I can't really relate to that because I am playing on iPad iOS. But Steam, I believe it can be better than iOS because you have improved graphics. Like the game can be easier since you have since you have at the end of a level of an exit, you had that little space where you can spawn your reinforcements. Or like someone like Astra or Tremin, like the little goblin mechanic. That can really help you sometimes in Steam.
Yeah, it is quite helpful.
But iOS can have the shop, which is very useful, but I think that Android is better, but iOS we have two versions. We have the HD version, which looks more like the Steam and the Flash version, or you can have like, or it's just like where the icons like the reinforcements are like circles. Since most people get that, but I like the HD version, but you know I but Vengeance, it's everyone has to go with that version, but not Steam players. They get it. They get a better style, since but anyway, I'm done with with all the towers in my opinion.
Alright then guys, well, with that out of the way, I guess that's gonna do it for the video. That was a pretty interesting one. It was one of my very first experiences that I've ever done like this, so it was pretty new. I liked it. Markimar, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed talking with a YouTuber and talking with someone who knows so much about Kingdom Rush.
Well, it was nice. It was a pleasure meeting you. But there's also a little bit of a surprise if you stick around to the end. Now, I kinda kept that a secret, but let me tell you something. This beautiful lad like right here, he's also a Kingdom Rusher, but he posts on a social media that you probably will never guess. I'll give you three options. Number one, Facebook. Number two, Instagram. Number three, TikTok. Which one it is? Give you 5 seconds. Start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, did you guess? Well, if you haven't, well, that's fine, because I'll tell you the answer. It is TikTok, believe it or not. To be honest, at the first time when I heard about it, at the back of my head I thought, is this supposed to be a joke? Because, like, I never thought that Kingdom Rush will reach the level of TikTok. Like, I never thought of that, but apparently that's true. And I'm quite impressed to hear that Kingdom Rush is spreading into other social medias outside, YouTube, Discord, and, occasionally Reddit, I suppose, because I guess, I don't know how active Reddit is. I barely post in there, but it's usually, I suppose, a pretty good place to be. So anyway, I'll leave a link to his TikTok page down in the description. So if you're interested and you want to see Kingdom Rush in some other platforms, I'll recommend you checking him out. You will not be dissatisfied. I
Post hero reviews on TikTok. Hopefully, hopefully a couple years later, I can make a YouTube channel describing more detailed reviews, since they're quick. Since the maximum of a video is 60 seconds.
Yeah, you're limited by time, but on YouTube, you don't have to worry about that. Hopefully one day I'll be able to see you on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll go by the same name, MarkyMar.
So yeah, anyway guys, with that out of the way, that's gonna do it for the video. Thank you everybody so much for watching, appreciate you for sticking around to the end, subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future, and while you're at it, drop a like on the video, it means a lot to me. And I'll see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy, over and out.